I checked. Hello and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Harsh Singh and in this video we shall discuss the current affairs for today, 25th of April 2022. Let's begin. What do we have in today's current affairs are the quote of the day. Done is better than perfect. Yes, to begin is better than making things perfect. Perfection will happen with time, but then what is important is to start the project. And that happens with the initiative, the leadership capabilities that we have. Just beginning and we can achieve the rest, right? Excellence is better than doing things the perfect way. Good evening to all the participants. Kriti, Ashish, and Hima, Amlan, Bhabani, and Gopal joining in. Welcome to Kim as well. Let's begin. We will cover these following topics. Demolition drive happening, and we will not cover the political aspects. We will understand what are the important rulings about demolition drive by the Supreme Court, and hence we will drive to understand what are legal ways to get into this anti-encroachment drive. Phone tapping also, we will not understand what is the political aspect, but understand what is the legal perspective of phone tapping. Rules for web, which have been introduced by European Union, European Commission. Special purpose acquisition companies initiated, planned by the government. We will understand what is the reason. Cosmos Malabaricus project between Dutch and government of Kerala. Senna spectabilis, again from Kerala. And stragglers, I don't know if you have heard this term. We will look at possibly discussing this. And free education under Yamuna. We will understand all these articles in this segment. Going on to the first one, demolition drive happening around the country and also especially happening in Delhi. If you have heard of the place called as Jahangirpuri, going through demolition drive, and it was popularly in news said to be an anti-encroachment drive, because people need to be given right of way. The public area cannot be encroached by people who are living or conducting their business illegally. That was the argument given by the government. On the other hand, there have been Supreme Court judgments talking about the anti-encroachment drive in public areas, and there have been quite a few judgments. One of the judgments being the one of 2017 given by Supreme Court, and another judgment which is a very popular one, which was given back in 1985, that is called as Olga Palace judgment. Let us understand both of the judgments and understand if what is the procedure of evictions and what has been the philosophy of how evictions must happen at various places. So while the government says right of way should be provided in public spaces and people cannot encroach their government spaces or public spaces and live there or conduct their livelihood. On the other hand, what Supreme Court says is this: pavement dwellers cannot be treated as trespassers. People who are living on pavements, they are living there out of necessity. They're providing services to people and they're not there to disturb anybody. That is their agenda, just to carry out their livelihood. So we must consider their right to livelihood before they getting evicted. They must have right to be heard. That is an important part of the judgment. So let's understand each of the segments. So pavement dwellers cannot be treated as trespassers. This is one part of the previous judgment, 2017-18, and an eviction should not lead to deprivation of their lives, right? So this is very significant. Any eviction drive should not lead to deprivation of the lives of the person. The second one it says is that whenever you look at people getting evicted out of public areas or encroachment drives, then Article 21 must be considered, right? Which is very much similar to right to livelihood, right to life. Those things are important. Having said that, one cannot consider right to reside and settle in any part of the country as a fundamental right in this case, right? So one cannot settle at a public area saying that they have a right to settle. This is not done, but what is important is to consider Article 21. So we see how primacy to Article 19 has been given under the encroachment and demolition drives, right? Then it moves on to say any action taken by public authority which is invested with statutory powers has to be tested by two standards. So two standards have to be seen whenever any action by the government agency is taken. The first action is it should be under the scope of conferred authority. So if it is under Ministry of Home, if at all, or a competent authority to remove the encroachment, authority which is lower than that cannot operate. Suppose if it is Home Ministry which has to operate on those areas, Municipal Corporation of Delhi cannot act on those places. This is one. And the second one is that the removal drive must be reasonable. One cannot remove people out of the places without giving due notice. The usual practice has been MCD before any anti-encroachment drive, it gives notices to people, and 5 days period is given before the encroachment is removed, so that people can move their valuables or they can bring back a notice to the government. There must be a right to being heard. They must be heard at the constitutional fora, that is the court. But in this case, the drive was carried out expeditiously, without considering right to be heard, without considering the reasonability, without considering the fact that Article 21 was getting violated for innocent persons. It very clearly says right of way to the public and right to shelter was a fundamental right under Article 21, but the right to way should not also be compromised considering Article 19, that is right to settle. All right. So also in 2017, Supreme Court very clearly said that people, if they are getting removed from a particular area, there must be some way in which they should be resettled. So the court said that the authorities must bring a plan for the resettlement of the people as well. All right, accommodation at some other places. Along with that, there is another precursor which is followed in all the eviction drives, and that is the judgment of Supreme Court in Olga Palace versus Government of Maharashtra case. This is 1985. All right. So they say very clearly that pavement dwellers live under quotes filthy footpaths out of sheer helplessness. This is not their choice, this is helplessness, and not with the object of offending, insulting or intimidating anybody, and it is not against the right of way to the other people. It is just that they earn their living right here in the footpaths, and they carry out small menial jobs and nurse the city, and there is nowhere else for them to live. So considering such a pathetic situation for people, and empathy must be ensured, and this is how any eviction drive must be carried out. So right to life and livelihood should be considered. Right to being heard becomes important in comparison with right to way. So if you can prioritize, right to life is important, right to being heard is more important, versus right of way, which is a little which comes below this, and even below this comes Article 19, that is right to move freely and reside in any part of the country. So you can accordingly segregate the articles, right? So these are the important things about demolition drive which must be remembered. Remember, we had covered the noise pollution as well. So in any article that we study, there are two aspects. One is the popular aspect, populist aspect, something that catches the attention of people, and the other aspect is how a civil servant should behave, how a civil servant must act during those times. So noise pollution, what is the decibel level? There are two areas, commercial areas and residential areas. There are timings for day and there are timings for night. There are increased limits for people who have taken special permission, and there are decreased limits for others. Similarly, eviction has to be carried out, and Olga Palace judgment must be remembered. So this is what it is. Do remember this whenever any demolition or encroachment removal drive, it has a significance in any news items or any questions. And also, if you can remember, if there is a government scheme which is on people who are employing carts, push carts and working at public areas, do you have any scheme in mind which government is trying to formalize and help? Can you please put that in the comment section? The second one is phone tapping. Phone tapping is another thing in news because a minister has questioned the state's imperative on phone tapping, on their phone tapping. So let's understand what are the norms and rules for phone tapping in our country. Now, there were primitive times, maybe 15 years back, when telephones were to be used only with the wired connections, and in that time mechanical connections had to be formulated while tapping the phones, while hearing what is the conversation. On the other hand, right now, when the companies have gotten privatized, the new way has been using mobile phones, and while people are using mobile phones, private companies also have an important stakeholdership here, because earlier it was only BSNL and MTNL. Right now, private companies also have to be playing an important stake. So private companies have somebody called as a nodal officer, and all the requests of phone tapping have to be made to these people. There has a procedure which has been laid down. It is the Secretary to the Government of India who can give orders on phone tapping. It is Secretary of the Government of India who is a part of Home Ministry, or secretary in the home department of the state. These are the two people who can pass on the orders for phone tapping. The police is the one which asks for phone tapping in state, and in central authority there are 10 designated authorities like CBI, National Investigation Agency, Enforcement Directorate, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. They are the ones who can tap phone, and nobody else can tap phones. When the request is made, it is request by the secretary level officer, which is a very senior ranked officer, and under the Indian Telegraph Act, procedure has been mentioned very clearly as to how phone tapping has to be done. So let's understand. So it says, under the occurrence of any public emergency, this is one, or in the interest of state, public safety, public emergency or public safety. These are the two conditions in which phone can be tapped. Public emergency or public safety. One kind of this emergency happened during the times of 28/11 attack, 28 November attack in Mumbai in the year 2008. And that time, this hierarchy could not be followed. Secretary level officer and then they giving the orders. So therefore, to delegate this work, right, there are other people also who are below their rank who can pass on these orders. Who are they? A person who is of the rank joint secretary. Joint secretary is another IS officer rank. Even secretary levels are IS officers rank, or IGP rank, Inspector General of Police rank. These people can also pass on the orders. However, these orders have to be conveyed back to the superior within 3 days, and within 7 days these orders have to be approved of also, in case the phone tapping has to be continued. So have a look. And when these two conditions are met, public emergency and public safety, I wonder this question can be asked, right? Under what conditions can phone tapping can be done? There are only two emergency situations, public emergency and public safety. These are the two reasons, right? So on these two grounds, the government can ask for phone tapping if they are satisfied that it is for public safety, sovereignty of the country, maintaining friendly relations, security of the state, and preventing incitement to offense. If these are the things, public order as well. If these are the conditions which are being met, they will ask for phone tapping to be done. Now, certain smaller fragments of understanding about the same. One of them is that the person who is tapping the phone here, that is the nodal officer in the private agency. For example, Reliance Jio, nodal officer has to be assigned, and they are the ones responsible for tapping of phones. Now, when these officers are acting, they also have to send back a report every 15 days talking about, mentioning all the phone tappings that they're doing, so that there is a conformity between both the agencies, police agency and the private agency, that these were the requests and this is what you have been delivering all the time, right? So there has to be a synchrony maintained between private organization and the government body asking for the phone tapping. This is one. Another one is that if one has started to phone tap, they can do it for 60 days. And after that, they will again have to seek request, and it can be done for maximum 180 days in one specific case. Now, when it is done, every 15 days, there is a committee which has to review all the phone tappings. And it is a very senior committee, review committee, headed by the cabinet secretary, or at the central government, it is the cabinet secretary, and at the state government, it is the chief secretary. And all the cases, if there are 20 tappings being done in that state, all the 20 tappings will be mentioned to them. The rationale has to be mentioned by the officer very clearly. And if it does not get satisfied, the tapping will get cancelled or extension will get cancelled. This is how the procedure of phone tapping is applied in norms. There are innumerable checks and balances to ensure that that such a law is not misused. All right. Yes, Swanidhi, thank you very much. Good. Thank you for relating all these things. Swanidhi scheme for street vendors. All right. They also will have a stakeholdership here in the first discussion. Rules for web. The European Commission, European Union, they have come up with a new law that is called as Digital Services Act. Digital Services Act is doing away with the prerogative or the primary responsibility of a private company telling what they want to regulate, how they want to regulate. For example, if today Facebook bans, who should I say, the Prime Minister of India, right? If they ban the Prime Minister of India today, and if yesterday Twitter had banned the President of USA, erstwhile President Donald Trump, right? They banned them through their organizations and removed their account because of their bylaws and norms. Now, and if Facebook is being held accountable for many violences that are happening in the country or abroad, it is Facebook's norms and policies. So European Union says that under Digital Services Act, no longer will the bylaws of these companies be operational. We will be giving what are the laws. You are the intermediary, and you have to ensure that these norms and laws are followed. Very simple example of this: they will be telling what kind of content can be posted in social media and what kind of content cannot be posted in social media. They will be the intermediaries regulating the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? Primary users are the first stakeholders. They'll be regulating them. In case, one question to all of you: is it that the people who are regulating these companies like Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, social media companies, so is it that they will be penalized for a person who has committed a crime on Facebook? Is it that they will be penalized? Well, the answer is no. If they are regulating properly, then they will not be penalized. However, if they are not regulating it, they are generating revenue out of it, they are even popularizing that kind of content with the help of their algorithms, then they will be further penalized, right? So this is one important thing. Now, any disinformation that is being passed on, Facebook has its own way of promoting or not promoting it. We have discussed the algorithm completely. But now European Commission will be telling how the companies will be acting against disinformation. What kind of penalty must be given against disinformation? They will be talking about what is the harmful content for children, for women, and how this should be stopped in social media. Provide better protection for internet users and their fundamental rights, right? So this is another aspect of it. Add new procedure for faster removal of content deemed illegal or harmful. Facebook says we will take 3 days to remove this kind of content if it has been flagged. So there has to be faster procedure for removal of this kind of content, because in these fast times, the disinformation and any kind of fake news spreads like fire. So faster removal of any kind of content. So impose a duty of care on sellers. Example, Amazon. So Amazon is a seller and it is an intermediary, and it has got various sellers who are posted on Amazon's app or website. So intermediaries, the people who are responsible for posting the sellers, they and the companies which are selling their items online, they will have a duty of care. For example, if a person has used cosmetics of XYZ company and it doesn't work properly, it has in fact spoiled the skin of the other person, so they will have a duty of care. That means they will have to provide some level of treatment and support to the person, right? There's systemic risk involved. Now we are only dealing with individual cases right now. The systemic risk, for example, such large content, so much of data, and everybody's data stored at a couple of places, big data centers. Now, these are systemic risks involving theft of such mass level data. So systemic risk has to be handled by these kind of organizations, intermediaries. All right. Strong protection of minors and not targeting them for specific kinds of ads. And every of these companies will have chief compliance officers, right? Chief compliance officer who will be complying with these kind of norms given, right? So and as I mentioned, intermediaries will not be liable for unlawful behavior of the users online. However, if they are not acting on the illegal or supposedly not so good ethical or bad content, then they also will be penalized. So this is called as the Digital Services Act. It has not come into action right now, but this has been finally proposed and all the stakeholders have had their consent to this law. Now, the noteworthy thing is that India will or should follow a law like this in the public sphere and start regulating the digital media companies. All right. SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies. Now, government is mulling or considering formation of SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies, to create funding mechanisms for projects. Now, what has been happening right now is that a company which has been listed by, say, we have Amlan here. So Amlan Chakma, he has instituted a company, a private company, and he wants to list this company to have better collection of funds. So right now he has 1,000 crore rupees, and he deems fit that if he goes public, if he releases an IPO and later on an FPO, the amount collected, capital collected will be, total will be 10,000 crores. So this is the way people are listing their companies. This is one way. Government says there can be another way in which we can list companies. So for example, he was very keen on having a solar industry setup, right? Solar panels, rooftop solar panels, something which is not working, and he has got a very innovative plan. Government says, let's do this. Let's set up a company which is a blank check company, right? a blank check company, an empty company, and this should be like a shell company. It does not have any activity happening in the country. It is just namesake. And let us promote this company with the help of people, popular people, film stars, sports persons, and ask them also to put in some money. So people will start putting in some money, and let us call this as the new solar company of India. Just an example, new solar company of India. Now this new solar company of India will have people like Amitabh Bachchan, people like very popular people of the country, they putting in money, and therefore the funds will grow further, and it will grow to the same amounts, say 10,000 crores. Right now company is not operational, and now company will start seeking other companies for acquisition, special purpose acquisition company. They will start seeking acquisition for bigger companies so that they have the acquisition, merger with them, and then they start their operation. This is a model for fund collection called as special purpose acquisition company. All right. So they will have an escrow account. Escrow account means account, it is a third party account where people will be putting in funds, but funds will not be utilized till the time the acquisition has happened and operation has started. In case no acquisition happens within a limited period of time, the money will be returned to everybody and safely also. Escrow account is usually used during RERA, right? Real Estate Regulation Act, where the government says that you deposit 90% of the amount in RERA, and only when, or whatever amount, if it is 50% or 10%, and whenever you are given the possession of your final property, then the amount will be transferred from escrow account to the account of the builder. Escrow account, the third account, where the money will not be utilized, it will only be kept for a while. So this is how, through this kind of company, one can gather funds. Cosmos Malabaricus project. This project has been initiated between the Dutch government and the Kerala government. Now, Dutch people have got one of the most valuable, exquisite resource, literary resource, written in what language? Dutch language, on the life and life forms of Kerala between 1643 and 1852. Very rich and diverse written form of Kerala during those times. So these 200 years, and it's all in Dutch. So therefore, there has been a pact between the Kerala government and the government of Holland, and they're speaking of exchange programs where people can read these documents in Dutch and understand better about Kerala's history, modern history. Senna spectabilis. All right, again from Kerala. This is happening at Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, where invasive species have encroached the space, and the whole way has been given to invasive species as against the indigenous species. When these species grow, when these plants grow, you can see that the undergrowth is almost nil. If you are able to see there, the undergrowth is almost nil. It is because these invasive species have not existed here always. They came here during some times, modern times. The invasive species found its way in Wayanad in 1980s, when the seedlings of the plant is Senna spectabilis, they were first raised in nurseries for social forestry projects. And soon when they realized that these kind of trees are not conducive to the indigenous trees, they started to cut these trees and remove it from here. But then when they started doing this, they realized that the tree is only growing further with every stem and every shoot being cut. So all the efforts were in vain. Multiple shoots started to grow from each cut tree stump. So that was the problem. So this is removal of these species. Senna spectabilis is a part of forest management in Kerala. Imagine this. And the same thing is happening in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka as well. This invasive species which has been growing in Kerala, what it does is that whenever the plant leaves, they come, as a matter of the routine falling off. When they come off, the chemicals released in these plants and leaves, they are not conducive for the complete growth of undergrowth, and this causes less biodiversity. And if there's less biodiversity, imagine not only the floral species but faunal species. Kerala is one of the places of high biodiversity, where species which are microbial to snail level to herbivorous to omnivorous, all of them reside. Many of them hide, they are burrows. Many of them hide in the grasslands, and nothing is growing here. So it is a form of chemical warfare. Imagine this, biological chemical warfare, where these trees shed leaves and change the chemical composition of soil, rendering it unsuitable for growth of other plant species. That is the level of invasive species that this Senna spectabilis is. All right. Okay, today's case, we will discuss one of the articles later. This case is on the person who's been building education as a social service for people residing in Yamuna, near Yamuna. If you've heard, this was a very popular initiative where children would learn free of cost under the Yamuna banks, under the over bridges near the Yamuna, and the person was none other than one who was studying for UPSC examination. So where there's a will, there's a way. If one wants to educate people, they can do it through any other means that is at their disposal at their time. There's a spirit of doing something with excellence, not with perfection. That's what we all are looking forward to. And let's look at some questions here. Amran says, is it a surrogate company? It is not a surrogate company. Yeah, in a way, but then the company was never a part of another company. It got initiated from the beginning, right? The purpose is to acquire a company and to initiate a project. If the project functions, if there is further integration, acquisition or merger, then the project will be running. Otherwise, this will no more be running. So yes, surrogate, but then the purpose, yes, possibly a surrogate company. Yes, absolutely. Now, good evening, Tiyasha. Welcome back. Gopal, good evening to you as well. The questions, offline viewers, please put them down in the comment section. We will get back to you. And in case you have suggestions, recommendations, please put them down. Doubts and issues, please put them down in the comment section. Again, we will quickly switch over to the feature news for today, which is on a topic which was covered in one of the updates. The topic is battery swapping policy of the country. We will discuss this in slight details, and that will be all for today. I hope that you people are studying well for the examination. Let's see you in the current affairs video. Thank you for watching.